We are back. NBA playoffs finally here. We got a set of play-in games coming up these next couple of days. We'll be diving into that. Obviously, baseball season now a few weeks underway. We'll touch on that briefly, but later this week, we'll have a deeper dive with the rest of the NBA playoff matches and the MLB season as well. John, coming off a pretty good Sunday, got the first big dog in the MLB, had a nice little split there. Bad break in the Pelicans game, though. Took away a clean sweep on the day.
Oh, that's the one I wanted. Pelicans have got to win that game. Up 12, 14 points. Minnesota self-destructing, just absolutely self-destructing. Their two best defensive players out for most of the game. McDaniels breaking his hand, Gobert punching a teammate. Instead of imploding, they rallied around that, came back. That was a tough L to take. McCollum missing a pair of free throws down the stretch.
Brutal.
That was a tough one. That was a tough one to lose, especially when we finally, as Ben said, hit a big dog. If you guys are following, you know the baseball season has just gotten off to a horrific start. So much so that I actually sent out an apology and Saturday night, and I told you we'll turn this around, and we start that with Cincinnati plus 181. Finally get some breaks our way. 3 in the ninth. Win that game, and then actually just before we're shooting this podcast, it's Monday night. So we just cashed the White Sox. There's a bet, guys. I don't normally bet favorites, as you know. We laid minus 110, but I'll lay 110 when the game closes 145 and 150, which it did. Twins were sitting a few guys out. They're already without Kepler. Gallo's been out last couple of days. Knew he was going to be out. Buxton was getting a day off. And then they scratched Correa, and you're taking most of their sticks out of the lineup, which they've been struggling to score to start with. They've scored more than 3 runs only once in the last 5 games. Cease dominated them last year. 2 starts against them. Gave up only 2 hits, 16 shutout innings. So when I'll lay minus 110 when I think a game should be minus 140, which you close, we get the W. So 2 in a row in the baseball, and we're ready to go. But this is about basketball. We cashed our other NBA bet yesterday. If you guys are followers, we've been saying this for years now. Literally, the Bulls beat the Pistons.
Yep.
They just beat them everywhere they play them. So we've had them all 4 meetings this year. We've had them in Chicago. We've had them in Detroit. They played in Europe, and we had them in Europe. Wherever the Bulls play the Pistons, they just beat the Pistons. They did it again yesterday. So that's another W. So, yeah, we were looking for a clean sweep with the Pelicans. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I believe that Pelican loss is going to cost them. The way they lost that game, first of all, Minnie was the team that was on the back-to-back.
Right.
Pelicans were rested coming into that game. Cat hadn't played back-to-back. He's just coming back off the injury. Didn't even know if Gobert was going to play. He was dealing with a little hip problem. But again, being down double digits and self-destructing, letting their tempers get the best of them, and they rally around to come back with a W. That's a win. Not only we should have had, but Pelicans should have had, would have avoided the 9-10 play-in. For you guys that don't know, here's the structure of the play-in. So the 7 and 8 seeds will play tomorrow, meaning Tuesday. Winner of that 7-8 game becomes the 7th seed, and that's in both the West and Eastern conferences. So tomorrow we've got Hawks, Heat. Winner of that 7-8 game will be the 7th seed, and they'll get the Celtics. West will be Timberwolves, Lakers. That's the 7-8 game. Winner of that game will get the Grizzlies. Loser of that game will then have to wait for the next day, the 9-10 game to be over. The 9-10 game loser, obviously, they go on vacation. They're done. The winner plays the loser of the 7-8 game, and that winner then becomes the 8th seed. So that's the breakdown in a nutshell. But like I said, Pelicans losing that game at Minnesota, a game that they like I said, up double digits. Two best defenders out for Timberwolves, literally taking themselves out of the game, Gobert and McDaniels. And and they can't hang on. They don't get the job done. So they fall into the 9-10 bracket now. And I guess let's go. We might as well talk about that game. So we're going to jump ahead to Wednesday instead, as we're talking about it. Pelicans will host OKC Thunder on Wednesday in that 9-10 seed. So Pelicans went for that win. 4 of their 5 starters all played 39 minutes or more. A couple of guys played 40. They wanted that win. They wanted to be the 8th seed. They didn't get it done. Oklahoma City, on the other hand, they rested all their guys on Sunday. So the game they played before that was back on April 6th. Their guys going to be off since April 6th. Well, Pelicans, like I said, 39 minutes or more for 4 of their 5 starters. And coming off a game that they should have had, they go back to New Orleans, where Thunder have won 5 of their last 6 trips, covering all 6 trips. In the last 2 years, they've played 7 times. Pelicans have won 4 of the 7, with Thunder covering 5 of the 7, and of the 4 Pelican wins, none being by more than 4 points. The line is 5.5. Guess who I like, Ben?
Yeah, tough not to like OKC in this spot. Pelicans just a tough season for them. They come out hot. We're playing really, really well first half of the season. Then obviously you got Ingram back. Then Zion goes down. They had Ingram out. McCollum had some issues. So no continuity. And then coming down the back stretch, they started pairing some wins together at one point, but against some bottom tier teams. And then, like you mentioned, it was just a game they needed and they didn't get, and the spot was all there for them. So this OKC team, not the best covering down the stretch, but all year long, and really just the past 2 seasons, been really keeping it within the number. They've been playing tight, covering darlings, we've been calling them. So agree with you. It would be OKC or nobody on this game. Just as far as the Pelicans, I mean, we talked about it. You talked about it with Minnesota, just as far as what they have going, and now going into the playoffs, momentum couldn't be worse for them. Pelicans aren't quite as bad on that, but still on a similar path. Just not much going for them. Zion not going to be back in time for this. They had the late run last year. They got hot at the right time. They looked like a great team. After the deadline, they got McCollum. Things looked like they were clicking. They don't seem to be on the same level defensively, and it doesn't seem to have the same presence culture-wise. So agree with you, matchup-wise, the history trends, everything here lines up for OKC. A lot of points. I'm really one of the few dogs in this play-in tournament I'm leaning to. But the rest of the games, I'm kind of leaning a little bit more to the favorites.
And for good reason. We'll talk about that. So we got Hawks at Heat. That's what will be tonight, Tuesday night's opening game. The Eastern Conference 7-8 play-in game. Hawks go to Miami, and they just don't win there. 7 straight. Let me get these stats up for us. Hawks have lost 7 straight, 2-5 against the spread. They've lost this is at Miami. Their last 7 trips to Miami. They lost 11 of their last 12 trips to Miami. Just don't get it done. Heat, they beat them 3 out of 4 times this year. They beat them 4-1 in the playoffs last year. They just have their number. Expect them to do it again. The number's sitting at 4.5 or 5. The only thing that stopped me from betting the Heat in this game, I make the number right there, but because they own them, would lean there. But the Heat just don't cover at home. Just haven't covered at home. Been a terrible team all year against the spread, especially at home. But would be Heat or nobody, just a pure domination. They've got the Hawks number. Expect them to come out the winner tomorrow or tonight.
This Miami team last couple of years come playoff time, just we see that defense come to be what it's meant to be. And obviously in the regular season, NBA defense isn't played as intense and it's just not as much of an important. But you look at last year in that playoff series against Atlanta. I mean, they held Trae Young to single-digit points twice. In the other game, he had 11. So it's just that defensively, they really do well against Trae Young in this matchup. We've seen them be able to do that in playoff series before, shutting down Giannis prior to the Bucks run. Was that 4 years ago? So they do well in this matchup. They know how to take out star players. And this Atlanta team, not as deep as they were when they made a few runs a few years ago. Clint Capella not giving them as much as he used to defensively, so that's a little bit of a hurt. This Atlanta team, I mean, talk about Minnesota. They have a little bit of cultural issues now going into the playoffs. Saw reports today. Don't know how accurate the reports are, but just talks of with Trae Young. Apparently, the front office the owners have given the front office green light to trade Trae Young this offseason if something comes up that's a beneficial opportunity. So obviously, you don't want those reports coming out the day before the play-in. Obviously, there was talks of that earlier this season when they had the issues with McMillan. So two different teams culture-wise as far as going into this. And like you said, the matchup history just all favors Miami. So be heat or nobody for me. Agree with you. I don't want to lay this big price. Would also have a slight lean to the under in this matchup. Just seen Miami give Atlanta a lot of troubles last year in the postseason.
Yeah. So we agree on the favorite in that one. I would have to go with the favorite in the nightcap, which is Timberwolves at Lakers for all the reasons we've already mentioned. No. Minnesota basically self-destructing, talking about two of their top defense, not two of their top, the two top defensive guys, one of the best defensive guys, defensive player of the year for 3 years, Gobert. You're going to need him to slow down AD. AD's been on a tear. AD is the reason, in my opinion, Lakers are where they are. Since the trade, since the All-Star break, Lakers have the best record in the West. Only the Bucks have a half a game better record than the Lakers in the entire NBA. We said it when the trade deadline came and went. Lakers won the trade deadline. They shored up what they needed. They got rid of guys that can't shoot, brought in D'Angelo Russell and Beasley, guys that could shoot. They fit in perfectly. LeBron gets a little break. Is this deja vu? Remember, we talked about it all year. Curry gets hurt against the Celtics in the regular season last year, sits out till the playoffs start. Little bit of fresh legs, and it propels the Warriors to a championship. LeBron goes down a little bit, gets a little rest, comes back. Is that what the 38-year-old? Is he 38 now, LeBron? The
38, yep.
Maybe that's what he needed, a couple of weeks to save the legs for the playoffs. But AD's been playing great. So no Gobert. He's going to serve a one-game suspension for throwing the punch at Anderson on the sideline yesterday. And Jaden McDaniels, a solid defender, breaks his hand, punching the wall in frustration over the game yesterday. He'd be on LeBron.
Yep.
So your two top D guys. Now who's gonna try to slow down AD and LeBron? Catch is coming back. Has kept a better offensive game, obviously, but just not going to be able to slow them down defensively. This line jumped from 5.5 on the opener to 7.5 now. That's where I believe it should be. But again, Minnesota winning a tough game to just stay to become the eighth seed, leapfrogging the Pelicans. Lakers basically cruised against the Jazz. The game stays in LA, so LA was home. Minnesota has to travel there. Everything says LA. It's just a matter of how many points they're going to win by, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, everything says LA. I agree with you there. As far as the whole Rudy Gobert situation, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, we looked at his time in Utah. It kind of seems like his ego, he just has this presence where he thinks people should be treating him better than he is. I don't know. Donovan Mitchell couldn't win with him, didn't like playing with him. We saw the beef there, goes to Minnesota. Now there's issues there. Either way, you do not want any of that kind of locker room interactions going on right at this moment, the final game heading into the postseason. So maybe it's better for Minnesota if he's not out there in that sense. But just as far as from a defensive perspective, like you said, I mean, he's everything to that defensively. This Lakers team since the deadline, like you said, best record in the West. I think it's 18-9 since that stretch. They improved on everything they can improve on. The main question marks were outside of LeBron and Anthony Davis before were three-point shooting and defense, and they've definitely executed both those. I think since the championship run they had in 2020, their point guard situation is the best they've had, which is difficult because to play a point guard next to LeBron James, who's so ball dominant, you need someone who can kind of fit in that role well. Schroeder did it well. They bring him back, and he's kind of fit well back into that in his return. But they had Rondo in that stretch. Obviously, the Westbrook run, Town Horton Tucker, they tried Kendrick Nunn. A lot of rotating guards in and out of the stretch last couple of years. They need to find something here with Russell. Lakers clicking at all-time high right now, going into the playoffs. And the only other thing that was an issue was, are LeBron and AD healthy? And they are both healthy for the time being. The nice thing about this is just a one game, so it's not one of those you could lose Anthony Davis in the second or third game of the series. It's going to be Lakers or nobody for me, absolutely, in this one. Everything's lining up for it. And then if they get Memphis, I think that they could give Memphis a real run for their money in that situation. I mean, you talk about experience. Memphis, locker room issues like none other this season as well. The removal of Steven Adams, Clark. I mean, Lakers could find themselves a nice little patch here in the play-in and in the first round, getting teams a little bit discombobulated.
Lakers could be a problem. Memphis can't win on the road.
No.
Let's just say, okay, let's go hypothetical here. Lakers win, and they're the 7th seed. They'll get Memphis in that first round. So they'll be at Memphis on Sunday. They'll start on Sunday. So the Lakers will have off from Tuesday till Sunday. They'll go in approximately as a 1-point dog. That's according to my numbers. If they win on tomorrow, on Tuesday, they'll steal a game at Memphis. I don't see Memphis winning at LA. Lakers got a good shot to upset, if it's an upset, the Grizzlies in a 7-game series. Grizzlies just down the stretch weren't playing great, and just on the road all year has been a problem. Not only for them, I mean, the whole Western Conference just didn't win. Take out Sacramento, nobody really did any winning on the road. So that's going to be a problem. Lakers win tomorrow. They're going to give Grizzlies a real run for it. That's a tough 7 seed to pick up if you're the Grizzlies. Like I said, best record since the All-Star break in the West. 2 top players in LeBron and AD. They'll have their hands full. We'll see what those numbers is, but go with my number. I say Grizzlies would be a 1-point favorite in game 1. Any more than that, I'll be all over the Lakers.
Yep, I agree with you there on that spot they're lining up for them in that matchup. Obviously, a lot of these for you guys watching is going to be, a lot of hypotheticals, ifs, and whatnot as far as who matches up. Just have a hard time seeing Minnesota upset LA in that first game. Maybe once they get Rudy Gobert back in the second game and to see who they get in the second set of the play-in, they can still fight their way in. Just really a bad spot there. They're going to need a massive game from Edwards or Towns in order to pull that off.
It's all the spot because the Grizzlies had the history. Lakers went to Minnesota. The last time they had, not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, we had the Lakers there. They crushed them. They win by 12. Prior to that game, Timberwolves had covered 6 straight against the Lakers and had won 5 of 6. So Timberwolves were playing good. That game took a lot, I believe. The game yesterday, I'm talking about Timberwolves, Pelicans took a lot out of both teams. More so, obviously, by losing Gobert and McDaniels from Minnesota. But I think it's going to be costly to New Orleans, too. Really like OKC on the following day, on Wednesday. But, yeah, Minnesota losing those 2 guys. The 2 guys that, like I said, desperately needed to cover LeBron. And they're gone. The history would have been on Minnesota's side, but they played a tough game. Going to be tough for them to do anything in LA. So yeah, we like LA in that spot also. Then you got Wednesday. We already talked about the OKC Pelican game. The other game on Wednesday is the other 9-10 game. Winner of that game will get the loser of the Heat Hawks game. So that's Bulls at Toronto. And the stats here are this. Bulls, who were horrible on the road for 3/4 of the year, win 8 of their last 10 road games. But Toronto, similar, 13-2, 11-3-1 against the spread their last 15 at home. Team that's playing well on the road, playing a team that's playing well at home. This year, whole team served in each of the games, 3 games, 2 in Toronto. Toronto won them both by a combined 15 points. Bulls won the home game by 14 points. This game's a little bit higher than I make it. This home court advantage is always bigger in the playoffs and first round than the regular season. But in this one, I don't have a bet in this one. I just think it's a little high. but it's been a home-dominated series, especially this year. The home team, the Raptors have been playing good. Bulls not so. The Bulls have been great on the road. Bulls were hot and cold again. You just don't know what team's going to show up with them.
Yeah.
They showed up to beat the Pistons like they always do. They beat a Dallas Maverick team. I don't know if we want to have time to touch on what the Mavericks did. NBA is actually investigating that. This was a tank not only to stay out of the playoffs, but it had something to do with a top 10 protected pick that they owe the Knicks as part of the Porzingis deal. So by not finishing top 10, they don't give up the pick. But they've just got to come up with something, man. Like we've been talking about this for a while. This tanking, it's just terrible for NBA. It's good for when we know who's tanking.
Yeah.
But it really, I think the simplest thing to do is the teams that don't make the playoff start at 11 and give them the most ping pong balls, 11, then 12, then 13. Give the team the worst record, give them the least ping pong, other than the teams that are actually in the playoffs. You got to do something like that. It's an ugly stain. It's a black eye. How do you play? I know we're getting a little off the subject. I'm just kind of pissed. I actually put it in my story. You sit everybody. You play Luka, but you only play him for the first quarter. And it's just not. It's not. It's just not right. It's just not how it should be done. But anyway, getting back to the Bulls Toronto game. That one's a toss up at that number. Bulls have done well on the road in their last 10. Toronto's been great at home. Look, Toronto, this is another team that's just that they get on my nerves because I think they can be better. They've got talent there. They've got a starting five. Van Vliet, Anunoby, Bonds, Siakam, and Podol, who fit the bill coming over from San Antonio, give them that big man. And then you got a couple of guys off the bench that fit right in, like Trent, to give you some points. That's six, and Nurse plays them. You'll see them guys will be playing high 30s, 40s in the play-in and playoff games if they get there. A lot of talent. When they get their best game going, Toronto can play with just about anybody in the East. They beat Milwaukee the last game of the season. That meant absolutely nothing. Both teams weren't playing anybody, but they give Milwaukee fits for the most part. This year, prior to that, Milwaukee had won the 3 games, but in years past, always give Milwaukee a problem. So we'll see how that game goes. The 5, just a tinge high, 4.5 or so. That's where I am with the number on that one, Ben.
Interesting game. You have DeRozan going to Toronto, so obviously that's a little interesting for a playoff matchup. As far as the Bulls, like you said, very streaky all season long. What are we going to get out of them? What team's showing up? I agree with you that this Toronto team underperforms. I don't know if that's more so a Nick Nurse issue. As far as, he's a good coach, but he's a very defensive-minded coach. I don't know if it's the guard play he has to work with. A lot of small guards, hard to be a defensive team. You got guys like Gary Trent and Fred VanVleet running around. So they are – I don't know if that's a struggle there, but I agree with you. The roster is deep. And so you could argue this Bulls team. The Bulls have a solid 4 there in that starting lineup, and definitely in the wing specifically. As far as the matchup history, though, like you said, it's Toronto. They had a lot of success in the matchup in Toronto. I don't want to buck that. I agree the number is a bit too steep here. Just don't trust this Bulls team enough to show up in this moment. Who knows? Maybe DeRozan comes as a heroic 40-point game out Toronto, return home. Maybe we see that. I just believe deeper in this Raptors roster. The playoff experience there for the Bulls kind of worries me a little bit. And also the Chicago team, just feel like they're committed to mediocrity, where this Raptors team has a ceiling with this roster they have. I don't know how much farther the Bulls can go than this play-in of a 7 through 10 seed the next couple of years with this team. So I think Raptors have more going long-term. For this game specifically, wouldn't lay this number with the Raptors. Would be very interested in getting a cheaper live price if it becomes available. Yeah,
look, the Raptors were they were sellers at the trade deadline. They just didn't get any deals done. Mm-hmm. Anunoby was thought to be almost a done deal, that he was going somewhere. No. Nurse has already talked about he'll be reevaluating stuff at the end of the season. So just tough to play with those things hanging over your head. But Toronto, like it says, they give anybody fits in this. They're the better team. I feel they're the better team. For
Agreed.
Chicago to get a win there tomorrow, they're going to need. It's going to be Levine and DeRozan going to have to give them some 30s, some games in the 30s to steal that one. The only other real scorer you can count on, obviously, anybody can come up with a game any given day, but it's Levine and DeRozan, and if Vucevic could all of a sudden give you something also, but those two, Levine and DeRozan, they've got to come with 30s, or they're not going to be able to pull off that W. Into the weekend, obviously 4 series is set. The other 4 are waiting for the 4 play-in seedings. So we can talk a little bit about what's on tap for Saturday. So Saturday you've got Brooklyn will start against the Philly. That's the 3-6 matchup in the East. Just to give you guys an idea. So again, guys, I say it all the time, go to my ratings. If you're How to Beat the Bookie member, go to my ratings. These aren't ratings like, oh, this team's better than this. They're the ratings you make the line with. At playoff time, I mean, these numbers are right on the number. So we got a game going to be Saturday. So there's no back-to-back. Both teams are going to come into this game healthy. On my ratings, you've got Brooklyn 32.7 on the road. I've got Philly 40.8 at home. That's 8.1 different, and the game is 8. The line is 8. You don't get any closer than that. Okay. So game 1, flip a coin as far as I'm concerned. That 8 number, Philly should win this game. Do they cover the number? We'll see what happens in that one. But again, that's how good these numbers are. When I'm off on a number, and we're going to talk about what the numbers that I'm off. The second game. First, why don't you weigh in on that Brooklyn-Philly game, Ben?
It's just a really tough matchup for the Nets. They're just, as far as the interior defense, it's not there. Obviously, they have a little bit something going on with Claxton, but just
like Claxton,
yeah, a little something. But I don't think it's enough.
I mean, let's be serious.
Yeah, that's entirely true. And the thing with the 76ers is, as a whole, what are we going to get out of Harden and Embiid? It's been their entire careers, even when Harden was in Houston. What's going to happen come playoff time? They're 2 players who are just so dependent on fouls and getting free throws for their points. Don't get me wrong. They have a lot of other skill sets, but that's just the main part of their game in the regular season. They get the game called a bit differently come to the playoffs. We'll see how they adjust. But they do get a little bit of a break getting this Nets team who's just not nearly as scared. They had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and everything else they had going for them at the start of the season. Wouldn't be surprised if Nets make this a little interesting. We saw the 76ers struggle with kind of a similar build of a roster with Toronto last year in the playoffs. They eventually overcame. It was a banged-up team, though, but just a team that didn't really have a dependency on one star, although Mikal Bridges is starting to butt into that a little bit. Lean to the Nets in this game 1. Don't love it. It's a big number that I don't want to lay with Philly this early in the postseason. I need to see what Harden and Embiid look like this time of year.
The next game on that day, on Saturday, the Celtics, who are the 2 seed, they'll be getting the 7 seed, and that's the winner of the Hawks-Heat game. If it's the Heat, you got to replay a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals, and that'll be a lot of fun. Miami played them crippled last year. I mean, they were beat up. Took them to 7 games, so that could be another fun series. Boston looked like they righted the ship before the end of the season. I've got them right up there. As far as the East, to me, it's Boston or Milwaukee coming out of the East. I think they're the 2 top seeds. They're the 2 top teams. I think that's how it's going to break down. Philly would have to obviously beat the Nets before they get a shot to play the Celtics, but Celtics had their number this year. I see Boston and Milwaukee going. Next matchup is actually Knicks Cavs that day, that Saturday. And Knicks are questionable to get Randall back. Brunson will play. He sat out the last couple of days. They got him healthy. Both teams locked up their 4-5 seeds early. So both teams will be totally rested, totally healthy coming to that one, except Randall. Now, Randall was at Sunday's game without the walking boot on. He'll be reevaluated this week. He'd be big for them. Regardless, they put this number up 6 Sunday night. And I think that was a little bit of a high number because Brunson will definitely be playing. Knicks played them really good this year. Just beat them a couple of weeks ago in Cleveland by 14. Knicks taking 3 or 4 meetings this year, splitting the 2 in Cleveland. Knicks were another team that from the trade deadline, from when they got hot, they just took that team to another level. Hard to say. Hot? Yeah, really? Well, it was hot. It was a whole mix of things. Brunson finding his way. But they played just on a different level from the earlier part of the season. Like the Knicks in this one, getting a half a dozen. We'll see if Cleveland was they were in the play-in last year. This is their first real playoff in a while. Are they ready for this? You know, obviously Mitchell's been there with Utah. But what has he done once he gets there? He has some games. He's got to win. It's all about winning. I think Knicks will keep this one close. First one in Cleveland.
I'm high on this Cavs team in this postseason and even in this series, but I'm not this high as this number with the 6. I think this Cleveland team is kind of the epitome of what you need in the NBA modern. They got the shooting. Obviously, they led the NBA this year as far as points allowed, and the defense is there. That's very prominent this time of year. Randall obviously makes this game very interesting, depending on in or out. We'll see what goes on there. Wouldn't want to lay this number here with the Cavs. I do think, though, that this series should be rather easy for them. I do like what the Knicks did since the deadline, even a bit before that, is the back end of December when they started picking things up a little bit. They were playing better, but another one of those teams. What are they going to do in the postseason? We saw that with what was that year against Atlanta, right? They had something going, but what could they build on it? I agree with you as far as the Cavs' lack of experience, a little bit concerning, but Knicks aren't necessarily beaming with experience either. Brunson, he got to step up last year in that series against Utah. Luka goes down, so obviously he picked up some experience there. This Knicks team, the rest of it hasn't really done too much in the playoffs. So what do you have there? Lean a little bit to the Cavs as far as a series read. I see them closing this out in about 5, maybe 6 games, but I would not want to lay them as a 6-point favorite. I don't think I'm that high on them game to game.
Well, we'll talk about the whole series once we see what Randall's situation is. We'll talk about Clippers are also like that with Paul George. We know he's going to miss the first few games at least. Depends how much of the series he's going to be out. Final game on the Saturday is Golden State Sacramento, and this is another 3-6 matchup, but this is in the West. So Sacramento wins the Pacific Division for the first time in 100 years since the Chris Webber days, and they get Golden State, the defending champs from last year. Bad matchup. Ben, what'd you say the series price is on this one?
Yeah, minus 290, the biggest favorite of a 6 seed ever in a series. So it couldn't be a worse matchup for Sacramento, and it couldn't be a better matchup for Golden State. For a team who can't win on the road all year long to get just 30 minutes downtown, you know, it's the best matchup Golden State could ask for.
So Sacramento and where Golden State plays is basically a half-hour car ride. It's basically a Brooklyn, Madison Square Garden. You know, that this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, so with that, I mean, Golden State catches a breather with that. Interested to see how Sacramento fights. I know that the GM there said that the West is going to be running through Sacramento this year in the playoffs. So whoever wins this series is going to go win the West. Liked what we saw from the Kings this year, but I tend to find with these younger teams as they make those climbs. We saw that last year with Memphis, for example. Once they get to the playoffs, it's a different beast. They don't have any playoff experience. Even some of the guys that they brought in that made them better. Obviously, the trade was a bonus at the end of last year. Bringing Kevin Huerter, you bring in Murray in the draft. Just not a lot of playoff experience anywhere on this team. So it's going to be a little interesting. Barnes maybe adds a little something there. Golden State in this series. I mean, I wouldn't want to go against the team who's ran this league for the last 10 years. They had that rough stretch, obviously. They had the struggles on the road. The struggles with Curry's health. But they get Wiggins back, and I think that's just the defensive piece they needed a little bit. I couldn't go against Golden State in this game or this series, quite frankly.
Yeah, look, the first game especially, I just think it's a new animal. It's the playoffs. The regular season's over. As Ben said, this is not a real road game. Golden State's been horrible on the road all year. They just went there and look, in all fairness, Sacramento sat everybody, and they punished them by 22 points just a couple of days ago. But they own Sacramento. It's the little brother syndrome here. 8-1 straight up the last 9 now. Sacramento has covered 5 of those 9 games, but it's usually when it's a higher number and Golden State's a bigger favorite. Here, it's right now we've got the line. It's Sacramento 1. But again, you've got the new entry into the playoffs for the West being Sacramento against the reigning champs. All have been there, all with the experience. Real tough for Sacramento. And again, Golden State is like they stepped in shit. Like, oh, we suck on the road. Oh, we don't have to go on the road. We down the road to Sacramento. So, yeah, everything points to Golden State in this one. 1 point favorite Sacramento. Now, again, my numbers, home and away, Golden State is 2 points. Yeah, Golden State's 34-6 on the road, Sac 36-6 at home. So you say, well, John, you make Sacramento 2 points better. Yeah, but not a real road-home difference. Kind of like we said, kind of like the Knicks Nets. Not only that, it's one team owns the other. 8 of 9, Sacramento's beat them. So this game to me is more like a pick 'em or sack one. We'll wait to see where this game goes, but it's Golden State or nobody.
I will say one factor that does go into the favor of Sacramento is Mike Brown being the head coach, coming off the run with Golden State a few years there. So that's one thing that, could be beneficial to them in this series, is having that maybe a little bit of an inside edge of how to slow down Golden State, maybe point out some weaknesses here and there. But it's night and day as far as experience goes. And that's what it comes down to this time of year. So hard time seeing it, but I'm excited to see what this Kings team has to offer. I mean, that's as tough as a fight you can get in the first round.
Yep. Sundays, we got 3 games. With Bucks are waiting for an opponent, Nuggets are waiting for an opponent, and Grizzlies are waiting for an opponent. As we said, that's all depending on the planes. We talked about the Grizzlies a little bit. If Lakers win Tuesday night, they'll be the Grizzlies' opponent, and I think Grizzlies will be in for it. Denver, they'll get the 8 seed because they were the top seed. So if Minnesota loses tomorrow, loses Tuesday night to the Lakers, it'll be Minnesota playing the winner of the Thunder-Pelican game. They could come right back against the Pelicans, the team that they fought on Sunday. Or it might be the Thunder. Thunder, like I said, 5-1 their last 6 trips, 6-0 against the spread to New Orleans. We'll see what happens there. So we don't go to too many different details. Bucks, number 1 seeded overall in the NBA. They'll have home court throughout. They'll get the 8th seed. And that they'll get the winner of the Toronto Bulls against the loser of the Hawks Heat as the 8th seed. And going to be tough to beat Milwaukee as the at home in the first game. Too many different scenarios. The one scenario we can talk about, Clippers-Phoenix. That's the one game that is set. That's a 4-5 matchup. Clippers played at Phoenix just Sunday, but Phoenix sat everybody as they've done for the last couple of games. Phoenix locked up the 4 seed. Clippers continued to play their guys. They wanted to get the 5 seed. There was some questions Sunday. Do they play to win? Or do they try to drop to the 6th spot to get Sacramento? They had the heads-up matchup with the Lakers, so a loss may have been beneficial. They get Sacramento, where Golden State would have got Phoenix, which would have presented a whole nother bunch of issues there. You KD going against Golden State. That could have been a lot of fun to watch. But it's Clippers. Like I said, Clippers won both meetings at Phoenix this year. Won. Let's not put any weight on it because Phoenix sat everybody. That was just Sunday. Phoenix won both meetings early this year at LA. Phoenix, different team with KD. Haven't lost the game that he's played in while with Phoenix. Clippers, as we mentioned briefly, they'll be without Paul George to at least start the series. Don't know how much longer he'll be gone. And then you guys know there's always that ramp up time, that first game, second game. They don't come back and they're right back to being Paul George. Real tough spot for Clippers. With Paul George, they could have made this a good series. Right now, I've got Phoenix as the best team in the West. The seeding says Denver's number one, but my top three teams are actually Phoenix 1, Lakers 2, and Denver 3, with Golden State right on their heels also.
Yeah, although we didn't get the Golden State Phoenix matchup, still some fun storylines here. I mean, obviously Westbrook versus Kevin Durant in the playoff series, that's pretty nice to see. Chris Paul versus the former team of the Clippers, that should be interesting. I just don't know what we're going to get out of this Clippers team. I mean, without Paul George for how long, we have to see. And can Kawhi Leonard turn it back up a notch? I mean, that's been his whole, claim to fame is, the resting, taking load management days, and just being ready for this time of year. It's that time of year. He's ready. He's healthy. What are we going to see? And he took a step up. He looked good this year. He looked back to form, which we didn't know if we were going to see that again. Last two seasons, we didn't really get to see him in the postseason shine because of the injuries. What is he going to be able to bring? Is he going to be able to give them a fight here in this series? And then Phoenix, they have their health issues of their own. I mean, can those three of Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Kevin Durant stay healthy for a playoff series? Because they've had their health issues, especially this time of year as well. So a lot to look out for injuries. But just as a raw read on the series, I don't want to go against this Phoenix team. Like you mentioned, undefeated with Durant. And just overall, I mean, that starting five is as good as it gets in the league right now. So this time of year when stars are starting to play up to 40 minutes, I wouldn't want to go against this group of five. It's just a scary team right there.
Wouldn't surprise me, Ben, if we were back to 2 years ago, Milwaukee-Phoenix finals.
I wouldn't mind that matchup at all. I think good storylines there. You get a little bit of revenge factor as well for Kevin Durant after the toe on the line versus Milwaukee. So that'll be interesting to see. I don't see Boston coming out of the East, and I think they're the biggest threat to Milwaukee. But if they draw Miami in a 7th seed, I mean, that is an absolute nightmare for them. And just see them on a similar track as Phoenix was last year, just dominant in the regular season, and then injuries and issues on the back stretch, and couldn't get it done. Got knocked out early in the playoffs.
Look, they drew a tough seed, and we already talked about it. The Grizzlies could be drawing the Lakers as a 2 seed in their opening round, who are the winningest team in the West since the trade deadline. So, like I said, I've got Phoenix 1, I've got Lakers 2. The two seeds could have their hands full in for real tough matchups, although I give the Celtics a much easier time with the Heat than I'm going to say Grizzlies are going to have with the Lakers. But they all got to get played on the court. We'll see how they go. Quick breakdown, guys. That's what the NBA we're looking at to another NBA as we get into the weekend closer. Once we have the play-in matchups. Also going to touch on baseball. Tell them how we're going to do the baseball, Ben.
Yeah, guys, baseball, it's a lot more difficult to do night ahead like the NBA just because it's so many teams pretty much playing every single day, 6 days a week, sometimes 7. So it's too tough to, get reads on tomorrow's slate without knowing what happens tonight, bullpen usage, injuries, anyone get ejected. So everything like that, we have to wait and see. So we will have more baseball coming day of. It might be more of those 10-minute videos we've been posting on Instagram and YouTube. And also I might start doing more videos that are just one game a day breakdowns, just baseball deeper dives. But those kind of videos and podcasts has to be done same day. Too much changes in MLB day to day.
All right, that's about it, guys. We're going to wrap it up with that. And I've got 2 NBA bets. One of the play-in and one for the weekend. Like I said, it's another winning NBA season. That's all we do is win. If you guys were following us, what we did to the lines really at the end of the year, if you have a DraftKings account and you weren't following me, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Pillaged.
Well, I will touch on this. Having a DraftKings account in NBA a lot different than baseball. DraftKings uses at least a 20-cent line in baseball, and as the line goes higher, the spread gets bigger. Let's take, for example, today. Let's see, which game can we go? Would we take? Just want to try to get a good example of a game. Anyway, we took the Rockies plus $1.30 earlier this afternoon against St. Louis. Earlier this morning against St. Louis. So DraftKings has that line right now at St. Louis minus 140. Colorado plus 118, 22-cent difference. So you guys are never, if that's your only spot that you could bet at, you're never going to get the line that I'm betting. I don't promote illegal gambling in no stretch of the imagination, but you're going to have to find some other way to beat the number just by can't give away that much juice. We're betting a dime line. The money line is a dime line. In other words, when we took plus 30, the top number was minus 140, St. Louis plus 130 with Colorado. A 20-cent line, that's one of the reasons I don't bet the run line, because it's a 20-cent line. Let's say you're laying a run and a half. It's a 20-cent difference from what you're laying to what you're taking. So that already puts you at a disadvantage. So DraftKings, we literally pillaged them. We robbed them without a gun. We just took their money in NBA. Come back to us next NBA season, maybe a little different. It's not, the numbers aren't going to be so crazy in the playoffs. You're not going to be able to rob them. Still going to get the best of them. Still going to beat the game, but you're not. We were just robbing them. By next year, you have to have a DraftKings account. You have to follow me if you have one. Baseball a little tougher, like I said. You've got to look around, be able to bet. All of our bets. I answered this question too much. All of my bets are money line with listed pitchers. That's it. Not action, not run lines, money line with listed pitchers. But yeah, again, I give out games. I don't DM me. The line is 8 cents different. It's 10 cents different. Well, if you're betting a guy with a 20-cent line, obviously you're never going to get the same line I get. I can't help you for that. I can't give you guys a sports book to bet or make another place available in your state. Anyway, if you don't, that's what you need to do. But if you have DraftKings, like I said, what we did to them at the end of the year, I've got to say, in my entire life, that's a long time of betting, I've never beaten a game by 14.5 points and lost it, by the way. So just we had the Orlando Magic a day ahead of time. We took Magic plus 4.5 against the Cavs. It was a 2-game set. We bet them the first game of the set. Cavs win by 4. We get the cover by the half. We're going to come right back with them the next day. Then an hour after we bet or so, Cavs announced they're going to sit their entire starting team, which we figured they would, at least sit some of their guys. With that, the line moves 14.5 points.
Ridiculous.
So 4.5 we were getting. Magic went to a 10-point favorite. At that point, Magic decided to sit everybody, all of their starters. The game only went down to, I think, what would we take, Ben? 5.5 or 6?
6 on Cavs on that one, yeah, on the second time.
So then we came back with the Cavs. So even though it was a wrong thing, what we did, we made the best of it. There's no more edge. Again, I don't bet games to now. There's no more edge at that number, so we took the Cavs. So we have a 10.5 point middle. Again, I've never had a 10.5 point middle in my my over 40 years of actual betting, but it didn't happen for us. But this is what we do. This is what we provide day in, day out, betting with an edge. No fucking crystal balls, no dots, just day in, day out, doing the work. We're gonna lose, guys. We're gonna lose 40% of our games. If you believe guys are hitting 70 and 80%, you're a sucker. I mean, you're a straight out sucker. Okay, if you hit 60%, you're one of the sharpest guys in the fucking world. I mean, that's the bottom line, and that's our goal. In baseball, we're not going to hit 50% because we're going to bet dogs every day, and you'll see. Again, horrific start to the Major League Baseball season. Hope to be turning that around last couple of days. And again, I had three days into the Major League Baseball season. I've got morons in my chat saying maybe I should quit betting baseball. 3 days into a 162-game season. You guys, I don't want you on my. I don't have time for idiots anymore. I want you to come in and learn. But if you're just an idiot, go somewhere. Go somewhere where you deserve to be an idiot. Like a guy that tells you he hits 90% of his whale bets, and you're like, this guy's 23-1. You idiot! Nobody goes 23-1. Look, there's runs happen. and nobody gets hotter than me. When I'm hot, we had a couple of runs in the basketball season that are amazing. I'm just doing it day in and day out, beating the number. But we talked about it earlier today. A better favorite in baseball today, White Sox minus 110. We sent that number out as soon as we get the lineup for the Twins. That game goes off at White Sox, like I said, 140, 145. Circle, one of the most regarded sports books, up to 155. DraftKings at 150. That's when you can lay your favorite. And then that's what it's all about. That's betting with an edge. Look, Twins could have got 2 in the ninth and won 5-4. We still had the right side, betting the right side at the right number. That's what we're going to continue to do. If you want something else, like I said, maybe there's a guy out there with a crystal ball. If you find him, please let me know. I won't put my 16 hours a day in. I'll just pay him the 40, 50, 100, 200 bucks a week. We charge $39 a week, guys. If you're not a member, go to the website, download our app, and become one.
Yeah, guys, if you guys aren't members, go check out the Instagram page when we post on the stories, winners and losers there. Go read the previews, the information you're going to get in this MLB season. As John said, long season, 162-game season. Still a long ways to go. Going to be a lot of games, a lot of pitching, a lot of injury updates. So just from that information alone, it is worth it if you guys are betting on the MLB. And like John said, it has been a slow start, but that's what it was last year as well. Went into a stretch of 7 straight winning months that we took all the way down into the start of the NBA and NFL season. So get on board. MLB will flip around. It will be profitable. Just a little cold stretch, and hopefully a couple of winners in a row. Hopefully we can get a couple more tonight, John, and we can get back on the winning stretch there as well.
Yeah, look, like they said, yesterday's Reds game was just like a reflection of what I expect for the season. Mm-hmm. Losing the entire game, boom, 3 in the ninth, come away with the W. That's a 181 dog. And again, that's what I'm going to give you. You're not going to get the minus 240s here. That's, Tampa Bay over the A's, Tampa Bay over the Senate, over the Nationals, Tampa Bay over the Tigers. You're not going to get that here. You don't need to ask me for those games. They give you the game where there's value. Again, look at the previews, as Ben's saying. In my preview, in the story, I put up Walker. Don't expect him to be around so long. And Philadelphia's got a terrible bullpen. What happened? They beat their bullpen 3 in the ninth. Guys, it's betting with an edge. Nobody does it better than me. Major League Baseball, NBA, and NFL. That's about it, Ben.
Yep. Make sure you guys download the app. Go to the website, howtobeatthebookie.com. Like, subscribe to this. And if you guys don't follow on Instagram, make sure you guys follow there. John, we got NBA playoffs coming up and MLB getting going. Let's make some money.
Let's make some money.